They often said that the eyes are the windows to the soul, but sometimes they just need washing, you know. My name is Chip. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's the 22nd of November, 1987. Do we have any from the class of 87? Man, Ted. I'd like to thank the committee. You know, if you've never participated in one of these things, it's an amazing event. They're all amazing events, but being on the committee and engaging in the service work of putting on one of these things, it takes a whole village to do that, and we do it all year long. It's not just a short stint, you know, a couple of weeks prior to that. Angie and I are on 2 committees because we love doing it so much. So congratulations on what you guys have done for the 40th Sunflower Convention in Kansas City. This is amazing. To come out of the crevices of your couch and your beds and the Zoom cameras on your laptops and to show up with 1,378 people last night or whatever it was, it's an amazing deal. It's a program of attraction, and you guys have attracted well. AA is alive and well in Kansas City. I'm telling you, it is alive and well. To Donnie and Diane, you know, there are hosts that when we are privileged to be able to go and do this stuff, and there's sometimes they come up to you right before the meeting and introduce themselves to you and said, by the way, I'm your host. You're like, wow. These guys were all in from the pickup at the airport because I had my back turned and I heard this little voice saying, are you guys here for the Sunflower Roundup? And I'm like, Jesus, does it show? From the back of my head. And Angie said it wasn't about you. I'd already sent him a picture of us. But automatically, you know, with people like Donnie and Diane, they become family. You know, we went right from friends to family in a handshake and a hug. And the neat part was, before we ever got to our hotel, we told them we wanted to go on tour, and we wanted to see where they were active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And they took us to all these different places. We got to tour a little clubhouse that him and Ted, all the description of all the stuff that these people have been doing as far as service work behind the scenes in the darkness without any applause or any accolades. There's no great big ribbons. But these guys have put together a program and taken us to different places, and we've got to meet different people, and that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is. It's not about coming to a strange city and staying in your hotel room until it's your time to come up to bat. It's about it, and you guys have engaged us the entire weekend, and that's what we told. We are always all in. We're Alateen, we're Al-Anon, we're AA. We go to all of it. We hang out in the hospitality rooms because that's where you hear the real truth of what's going down. We'll find out what the sponsors were telling the sponsees. In the hospitality room, there's magic that's going on. Do we have anybody here that got sober during this pandemic the last couple of years? Look at these hands. There are people out there that thinks Zoom does not work. You just saw it work. If it was one hand, it was enough. If it was just one, it was enough. That's our job, is to carry the message however we got to do it. I wish I could do this COVID or no COVID thing, because it's an amazing transformation of what happens in our communication in Alcoholics Anonymous. But these guys here are the communicators. Everybody gets to walk past the Lee and Jerry show out there with all the tapes and all the stuff that they have out there. For 2 years, these guys were completely, in a moment's notice, completely just shut down, absolutely shut down, and lost these guys don't get paid to come out here. I got sober on cassette tapes. If you're new, they had these little plastic things. You put a pencil in them. You had to wind them up. I would stretch out Chuck Chamberlain, Norm Alpe, Johnny Harris, all these great giants, and some of them have passed on and left us. But these guys are the message carriers. They got tapes of our founders. It's an amazing thing that they do. And I used to lay my head on the pillow at nighttime, and I had a cassette player, a little Walkman, they called it. And I would have headphones on, and my spouse would sit there and she would not make a move. And I would plug in a speaker tape, and the music would happen. the music of sobriety would happen. It would still the savage beast inside. And I didn't know that that's what it was doing. And the problem was they were 90-minute tapes. So at 45 minutes, you could hear this. And she would gently reach up there and open that little gate, switch the tape, put it back in, and hit play, because she did not want me waking up. I found out I had insomnia. I couldn't go to sleep. They said, plug it. Somebody said it this weekend, plug in the Big Book tape. Rarely have we seen, who recorded that? Rarely have we seen a person. But even the guy, it's like AA, you know, we have people that carry the message, and it's all about Alcoholics Anonymous, but they don't even know it's an AA message. We know a lot because we've seen a lot. I'm like, that's the message. These are not wrinkles that scar tissue from sponsoring people. Please, if you get a chance, go by and talk to these guys and look at all the stuff that they have available and take them back to your home group for the people that missed the magic of being able to come here for this convention. It's an amazing thing. I'm going to tell my wife, I have notes, and I'm going to tell you real quickly. I'm going to take a couple minutes and tell you. It's going to be a combination of things of what Zoom means to me. And me and Donnie have cried and died all weekend long. We just like manly friggin' tears, you know, just, snot slinging. You don't ever interrupt God when He's working, you know what I mean? When a man's standing there crying, you do not interrupt that. You just stand there and be present in the moment. You cannot hug it out. You can't pat on the back. You just let God do His stuff. The 3rd of March, 2020. If you remember, nobody in February except one person had passed away from COVID. March the 3rd, 2020, I had a massive heart attack. I had already had 4 surgeries in a row. So I got carted off. To the emergency room. We called the surgeon. The surgeon said, "Don't come to my office. Go straight to the emergency room." And they put me in the hospital. And at that time, COVID had exploded by the 3rd of March. Me and Angie sat there, and in the emergency room, it was laid up, gurney, people coughing, hacking, signs going up on the doors, you know, contaminated area. And we're laying there on the gurney. I'm in the middle of a dang heart attack. And I'm like, I'm going to die in this place. I'm going to catch whatever it is. It was scary. They carted me upstairs, put me in a cardiac unit. They pumped me full of nitroglycerin, which they do every time that happens. I'd already had a heart attack in 2012, the Widowmaker, just like Ron had. I had 3 stents put in. Figured I had to top Ron. I had 3. And so I was unfamiliar with what they were about to do to me, but they kept me up there, pumped me full of nitroglycerin, and one more time. That's not the magic of what happened. What happened was my home group found out what had happened to me. And they took a newcomer and they pointed at him and said, "Go start a Zoom meeting." See, I'm one of what they call the long-timers in my home group. There's about 5 of us with over 30 years of sobriety, and they kind of push us out to the display table. I've been sober over half my life. That was not a plan when I was 32 years old. So they kept me up there, and I had to go. They split me like a coconut. Did a quadruple bypass. You know, I'm thinking, oh my God. They're like, "Chip, we do 2 of these a day. Don't worry about it." When I came out of surgery, there was a laptop, and they opened up the laptop, and I am loaded on Dilaudid. I mean, I'm stapled back together again, my entire body, and I can't breathe. And they opened up a laptop and they signed me on to my home group, to a thing that I had never heard of called Zoom. And there was my home group. If that had not happened, I don't know what would have happened. And they said, "Chip, this is your home group." And I knew right where they were. I'm in a cardiac recovery unit, and they're down there at the bar. That's where we meet, in a bar. Callahan's Restaurant and Bar. And I was at an AA meeting. And they said, "Chip, listen, but please don't share." Hey, dude. I have found the elixir. I kept trying to buy a 6-pack, and the doctor said no. So thank God for Zoom. And I started watching things happen. I started watching things happen on Zoom, and it was an amazing event. For people like me, Zoom saved my butt. I was medically quarantined for 1 year. For 1 year, I couldn't leave. Angie anesthetized the entire house. It was spotless. It was like a white gloved inspection. She is the daughter of an Army colonel. I'm the son of a Navy commander. I'm a retired Air Force guy. 20 years, 10 months, 4 days, but I didn't count. Thank you to all your veterans out there. Please raise your hand. Oh yeah. Yes, Diane. Even the Marines get applause. But what happened was, this is sobriety, so I'm going to tell you about it. After a period of time of recovery, there's something that we don't seem to talk about a lot, and that is what happens when the darkness comes. If you believe in a higher power, let me present this to you. There's a possibility that there's a lower power. Look around you. Where are all the people that sobered up with you? How many people from 1987? Thousands and thousands of them sobered up with me in 1987. Did they all die? Did they all drink, or did they just fade away? Because they said, is that all you got? Is that all there is? And what happened is, when we talk about this spiritual awakening stuff, and having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Now think for just a minute. When somebody says, how are you doing with the 12th step? What do we initially think about? Well, let's see, I'm on the phone list. I try and give rides to people. I try to do this. I try to do a little bit of service work. Sometimes what we forget about is having had a spiritual awakening. What does it feel like? What does it look like? I had somebody tell me one time, I said, dude, you don't look like you're 34 years sober. What are you supposed to look like? This isn't a cartoon book that says when you're 34, this is what you're supposed to look like. But what does it feel like? What does it look like in people that you sponsor? What does your sobriety look like to people that are your sponsor? The spiritual awakening, sometimes we seem to focus strictly on newcomers and getting them to come to the meetings. But my challenge to you this weekend is to think about the people that were long-timers that went to all these meetings, and now they're not here because of the 2-year pandemic. And some people have gotten really, really comfortable on their couches. And sometimes carrying a message to the alcoholic goes like this. Remember how we got sober? Get in the truck. Step 1. Step 2, sit in the front and come all the way in. And we have old-timers and long-timers out there that have not come back yet because over a couple-year period of time, they've missed their meetings and they said, I'm not doing that Zoom thing. It's not AA. Yeah. That's about as funny as, oh, don't worry about the stories in the back of the book. They're nothing but entertainment. Has anybody heard that? Whose story is the first story in the back of the book? Thank you. The co-founder. There's all kinds of reasons and speculations. People say, why Dr. Bob's story is in the back of the book. It's not in the front up there with Bill's. Maybe it was to draw us to the stories. Every Sunday morning, and whether it's Kansas City or Destin, Florida, there's a pulpit somewhere and there's a person behind the pulpit. And he's doing the same exact thing that Joel Osteen, Joyce Myers, Billy Graham, all these people do that attract thousands and thousands of people worldwide. But the man in the pulpit in Kansas City or in Destin is sitting there and he's reading out of the same exact book as what these people are on thousands and thousands of people on live streaming TV and stuff like that, carrying the same exact message. But what is the difference? What is it that draws all those people? What is it that draws people that are sitting in this arena right now to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, not to hear me, but to hear some type of message of hope or hear how you survive the darkness when it falls in sobriety? I believe it's because those people are storytellers. and you've heard it this weekend. Each individual has told a story that has gotten up here. Alateens, Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous people. It's not because they have such an ability to tell a story. It's because they got the call. If I walked up on this stage in the middle of walking up here and checked out, Donnie'd get up here and carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Ed'd get up here and carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. God forbid, Lee could get up here and carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no superstars. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, the price of your admission has been paid. So come all the way in and sit all the way down. Because you're the highest ranking people in Alcoholics Anonymous, besides me. The highest rank you can achieve in Alcoholics Anonymous is sobriety. It's not stardom. It's not speaker. It's not super sponsor. There's no hidden school that you can go to in a tunnel somewhere that teaches you how to become super sponsor. It's just written in the book on what we're supposed to do. So I'm supposed to just get up here and tell you, let me tell you a quickie, because I can. There was a time that I had never been to Akron, Ohio. So all of us together in my home group, which for the first 28 years was the Crestview Monday Night Big Book group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Crestview, Florida on the I-10 corridor up in the Redneck Riviera, we call the Panhandle. Disney Destin. So we all got together. We're going to go to Akron and we're going to do this tour. And we're going to go to King School to the very first, look, Lee's shaking his head. We're going to go to the very first group of Alcoholics Anonymous, still active, still alive, still holds those meetings. And we're going to go hear one of these Akron old timers tell their story. Oh my God. It's all going to be like archives. So all of us are all excited about it together, and we all show up at King School. We're sitting there waiting for the meeting. We get to walk in. We see all the archives. We sign our name in the book, and then the speaker gets up there to talk, and it's Lee. I said, my God, he was from Orlando. We just left Florida to come all the way here That's not fair. But he was there because he got the call and it was his job to do. It doesn't matter who tells the story. We have to just tell the story. The story is the same. It's written. It's not been changed. It's been augmented a little bit. The book says, we hope that you pause when reading one of the 44 stories in the back of the book and think, maybe I felt like that. Or maybe that can happen to me. Maybe I can stay sober. There's a reason. It says what we're supposed to do when we get up here. We're going to share our story in a general way, what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. But Bill Wilson gives us a set of instructions in the big book. And the set of instructions go like this. Where's Adam? Adam already left, didn't he? Yeah. He told me put sunblock on. I didn't finish telling you why I had to read notes, didn't I? On page 29, this is the big book. It seems to be pretty important in Alcoholics Anonymous. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. It doesn't mention puking. Doesn't mean going through windshields at high speed. It doesn't mean I have to sit here and tell you the damage that I did to my mother when she sat there in the emergency room in Key West, Florida, and they brought me in on a stretcher because I went through a windshield at 78 miles an hour without a seatbelt on. It says I'm supposed to tell you how I established my relationship with God. But in order to do that, I have to tell you what I was like. About a year after that quadruple bypass, which was really not so long ago, it was almost a year ago, I started having these, I noticed them. Angie, I think, noticed them long before I did. Something happened. I started losing my memory, but worse, my personality started to change. I had dear friends of ours come up to me that had known me for a long time and said, dude, you have lost a light in your eyes. What's wrong? And I said, I don't know. And they said, you're different. You act different. You talk different. You look different. Well, that had happened to me before I had a heart attack. I just didn't realize it. But now something's going wrong. and I am somehow drifting into the darkness. I started having these, I wasn't telling Angie I was having night sweats, I was having night tremors, I was having nightmares, and I wasn't talking to anybody about it, even my sponsor. You know how it is sometimes when you're having these dreams and you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't breathe? It was happening a lot. And I couldn't remember stuff. I was changing passwords to the bank accounts, the credit unions, not telling Angie because I didn't remember doing it. I wasn't just forgetting simple stuff. I was forgetting a lot of stuff. I'd wake up and when I mean wake up, I mean sitting in a bathroom or standing in a bathroom and forget where I was at. I did that in this. I didn't have a GPS to get to the men's bathroom over here. And stuff started happening to me. So we started seeking out help because people told us we had to get help. So in this memory thing, there's times that I just get in the middle of doing this and just poop. And I'm standing in the presence somewhere, but so I have to be able to try to look at stuff and just kind of remind me of what's happening. Anyhow, that's why I got notes. I got to listen to Aaron, I got to listen to Megan, and I got to listen to Angie, and I got to listen to Adam again. But I'll tell you, and I love hearing those stories, and they inspire me and they mesmerize me. Especially, do you remember when Aaron was talking about what was it? We could all sit there and listen to him talk, and when he got to the point where he was talking about walking into the room and seeing his wife, you could have heard a pin drop in this place. They even got quiet in the snack bar because we knew what was about to happen. We're not fortune tellers, but we have heard the stories of the Spirit shifting and moving. And I felt a spiritual shift in this meeting. We went from Norm Alpe said, we laugh because we hurt so bad and we cry because we're so damn happy, and they call it Alcoholics Anonymous. And we all sat there with him and we mourned for a minute or two. And we felt what he was saying. And he reached inside and he did the same thing that my sponsor did to me many years ago. He reached inside of me on a fifth step and he grabbed a piece of my heart and he just held on to it for just a little while. And I got to hold his. And I didn't understand what that feeling was between two men. But it amazed me. But let me tell you who shook my rafters is our three old timers that got up here. That's who shook my rafter. You guys got great sobriety in Kansas City. Katie and Jim and Tommy got up there. And when Tommy said it, I've heard it for 34 years. My name is Tommy, and most people call me, all my friends call me Tommy. And I'm like, I knew all about him and I hadn't even met him before. I don't know what it takes sometimes to shift in the people because I know what it took for me. I've got a crazy home group that's called Busters for Sobriety in the little fishing village of Destin. We are the largest commercial charter fishing harbor in the Gulf of Mexico, and people come from nations to come fish in our harbor because of the emerald green water and the sugar white sparkly beaches. And so we get to live in a destination resort. And if you've ever been to Disney World and you go to the Friends of Bill W. meeting on noon of any given day, you can now go to the Western Sizzling restaurant and they have a speaker meeting. And you don't know who's going to speak until right before the speaker speaks because they point to you in the audience and go, you. You don't know if you're going to hear it German, French. You know, these people are just coming to Disney World and they're attending a meeting. You get pointed at it, you're turning the bucket. You just get up there. But heads nod for an hour. The message of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the way it is with my home group because we have visitors come in all the time. And we just get to share and laugh and stuff, and they push us. We used to call it masking row because they pushed all the long timers back there. We all had masks on. We were quarantined for whatever reason, and we were there as much as we could be there. And they put us in the aisleway that goes to the bathroom. We're going to connect with everybody in that meeting one way or the other. And we're not there to impress anybody. We're the message carriers. We kind of call it the elder statesmen of the group. So I have an amazing group. I already told you about my memory. See, I forgot I told you about my memory. I already told you about. Oh, let me tell you. Has anybody here got their phones on? I've got a Bluetooth hearing aids, because I'm old, I'm 67. If you answer your phone, I'll hear it. And I'll repeat everything that I hear. I thought, well, if I check out and I just go blank, Lee can start voice texting me, and I'll just go, rarely have we seen a person. I was raised the son of a naval officer who used to be enlisted. If you know anything about the military, long time ago, far, far away, they never had an airman or an enlisted commissioning program. Dad was one of the original 223 in the United States Navy that were taken from the ranks of enlisted and automatically promoted to the officers' corps, and they had to go get a college degree. So my dad went to 8 years of night school. There was no internet back in the 50s and 60s. There's no Google search, no word search. And he had to be tutored. He was born and raised in Peekskill, a depression man, a mountain man. We just lost Dad 119 days ago. He was 93 years old, and he was a survivor of so much surgery and so many operations. And it was a great event in my life. I've never lost anybody, except my two puppies, the two little rat terriers I had. My mother's going to be 92 on June the 15th. I said, Mom, I sent Mom a text, and I sent her a picture of Donnie and Diane and me and Angie. I said, it's about my turn in the bucket, Mom. And Mom says, I'm sure you will do a great job. You have that magic touch. Love you much. I dragged these people through my alcoholism. Dad was number 3 and Mom was number 4 on my resentment list. I was raised in strict military discipline. Strict military discipline. I was raised in Key West in Cuba. My teenage years, Dad rose up through the ranks, just like Angie's dad did. He was a commander of the naval hospitals on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and Key West. We were back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I remember telling my brother and sister when I sobered up, no wonder I drank. You know, somehow we're always looking, like if we could run a YouTube video on where did we cross that line, what drink, I needed to know. I had all these questions. What drink was it? Where was I at? Where was I living? Which wife was it? How many children did I have when that happened? Who made me do it? Why did it happen to me? And I had all these questions. But I knew that I think it was because I was raised in strict military discipline and I rebelled. I have a brother and sister. My sister's a year older than me. My brother's 7 years younger. And I stood there and said, I know why I drank. Jeez, no wonder. And they said, why? I said, look at the way we were raised. Strict military discipline, star charts, chores. They've not been to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my brother and sister said, Chip, we were all raised by the same parents. You're the only one who ended up locked up in a mental ward. And it took away all my thunder about why I was an alcoholic. I don't know why I ended up drinking the way I drank. I did the teenage drinking in high school, you know, and I was either in Catholic schools or I was in Department of Defense schools. They thought the nuns would tether me down. Just like Adam said, I was rebellious back in those days. They called it rambunctious, and then sooner or later they diagnosed it as ADHD. And I was a rambunctious guy, and I got into a lot of trouble, and But I ended up getting married, and I'm going to sum up the first marriage real quick. It was like this. I got married at the Wee Chapel of Love on Gandy Boulevard outside of MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. The sheriff was there. Let's go to the second wedding. I met the second spouse. These are the people I dragged through my alcoholism. I met the second spouse when I was in a car chase with her and the first spouse. My story's quick. Stay with me. And that was the woman I was married to for 20 years and had 3 children with that I dragged through the alcoholism. I don't know why I ended up doing that. I don't have any of that. I'm looking back, way back. Where's the gene pool? Why did I drink the way I drink? Why did I do the way I do? I didn't know. But I had these 3 children that were 11, 10, and 8 years old. And I couldn't understand them. And I would tell that spouse, you just raise those kids and I will work. I am a worker. I'm a carpenter by trade. I'm a wood whittler. And I had a successful military career. And I said, I am. On April the 26th, 1987, they locked me up in a nut ward. I took my 3rd trip to the emergency room. And believe me, it wasn't because I drank a little bit too much vino. I ended up in the emergency room, and they called it alcohol poisoning. 3rd time. The Air Force doesn't appreciate that. They took me upstairs. They put me in a mental ward. And what had happened to me, I didn't realize it until I started working the steps later on. They took my clothes. They detoxed me downstairs in the emergency room. And it seemed like everybody and their kids had colds that day. So the emergency room was like this room was last night. It was jam-packed. There was all stuff going on. And I'm in the emergency room. And I'm coming apart from every orifice in my body. That's in a general way. And I am pacing up and down because I am detoxing. And every time I ended up in the emergency room, it was on a Sunday night. And here's the magic. It wasn't because I was drinking. It's because I was not drinking. Trying to sober up to go to work Monday morning. Every time I stopped drinking, something happened bad. And I am pacing up and down, and I'm looking at the exit sign, and I'm going back and forth, and I'm like, they got all these patients ahead of me. I don't get no stardom treatment when you walk in and you're throwing up from both ends, and it was not a good YouTube. And she went up there, and here's the reason why I know we have Al-Anon, because she was beating at the desk of the emergency room technicians, going, "You have got to do something with him." And they go, "Ma'am, we have a list of..." She said, "You don't understand. He has done this 100 times before. And if you don't stop it, he'll do it 100 times again." And these are the people that I was dragging through all this stuff. They took me upstairs. They locked me up. They took my clothes away. I was in a fetal position. I was in the rubber room, solitude, and I was detoxing. They pumped me full of Xanax, trying to calm everything down. I was filled up with nitroglycerin. They were trying to calm my heartbeat back down. And I'm laying there in that room, and I am in a fetal position, and I am weeping. And I had a lot of stripes. I had a lot of stripes. I was 13 years into my military career. And what had happened to me was this little 3-striper came in there with a flashlight. He opened up the door and he said, "What's wrong, Sergeant Bowden?" And I'm crying. I said, "I don't think I'm going to make it." I had tried fighting through it before, and I'd made it through it before, but this time I knew I was checking out. The heart it was scary. And he said, "Sergeant Bowden, I will come into this room every 15 minutes, open the door, and shine the flashlight to make sure that you're all right." And what I didn't realize was at that moment I had just turned my will and my life over to the care of a 3-striper with a flashlight. But weeks later, I'm in an AA meeting, and they're asking me to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." The ego had reemerged. I'd gotten my clothes back, and I'd graduated. I didn't understand what had happened to me. I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not getting it. I'm sitting in the back row. I'm doing what people talked about before. You come 10 minutes late, leave 10 minutes early. They're asking about alcoholics. Yes, I'll raise my hand because I do not want you visiting me on Monday night with a big book trying to convince me. I don't want anybody 12 stomping me. So I'll say, "My name's Chip. I'm an alcoholic." And that's what I did. And I heard all that, "Oh, meeting makers make it." I believe that as long as you're doing something while you're going to meetings. I'll give you that. I heard one recently, it said, "Meetings missers miss it." I said, "That's profound." So I stayed sober for 6 months and 3 weeks doing the AA cha-cha. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. What step are you on? 3? That's the automatic defense mechanism. They can't fight you on 3. I'm just making a decision. And I ended up going to California. The Air Force said, "You've done so well, Sergeant Bowden. They're going to send you to California with a bunch of troops." And I was supposed to go on to an AA meeting instead. When the sun went down, so did I. I was on the end of the Santa Barbara Yacht Club pier. When the sun went down, we were drinking. We all went down. And I was supposed to have been at an AA meeting. I had offered no effective mental defense against that first drink. It just came. They often say the alcoholic mind will drink 6 weeks before the lips do. It's because I wasn't doing something. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a spectator sport. So when I came back after 3 days of drinking, I said, "What do I do?" I said, "I am really not sure if I'm an alcoholic or not." Now I'm 33 years old. I'm not sure if I'm an alcoholic or not. And thank God for the wisdom of the long-timers. My sponsor had got sober in 1966 in Bellflower Big Book Group at Long Beach. Well, actually, he attended Long Beach under 30, and then he moved to Bellflower Big Book Group when Johnny started it. So he knew exactly how to reach in and touch me. He said, "So your drinking did not prove you were an alcoholic?" I thought, "I'm not sure if I'm an alcoholic." Watch what you do when you try to quote the Big Book to a long-timer. "Well, the Big Book says for me to drink again is to die." It lied. He said, "We didn't mean right now." Clancy said it starts a clock ticking in your head. It's called a time bomb. He said, "Chip," it said, "if you're drinking, if you're new, please hear me. If your drinking did not prove your alcoholism, maybe your sobriety will." And I said, "What? Where is that in the Big Book?" He said, "If your drinking did not prove your alcoholism, maybe your sobriety will." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Let's not drink for a while and watch what happens. See, if you're not an alcoholic, that's not going to bother you. But if you are, it's going to get real. It's going to get different. And then it's going to get real different." And that's what happened to me. See, I thought I had to have this Bill Wilson hot flash, the cool wind as it blowing across the top of the icy mountain and seeing the gods that all the elders were talking about. I wasn't getting that. I'm still wanting to drink, and I'm sitting in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. But what do? He said, "Do what I do, you'll get what I get." And what I had forgotten was, and me and Donnie and Diane have been talking about, this guy got sober in 66, but he came in 61. And it took him 5 years to lock in his sobriety date. 21st of September, 1966. We will give him a 56-year medallion on September 25th, or 21st of this year. He said, "Just do what I do and you'll get what I get." And I said, "But I'm not sure." So here's what he did to me. And this is supposed to be you look on the thing, it says spiritual meeting. Everybody that's sitting here has a spiritual meeting. God has somehow infused every one of you to be able to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's nothing but a spiritual meeting between you and God. But he took me to the people that could answer the questions the way I needed them answered. Remember that thing about the entertainment in the back of the book? I'm still focusing on Bill Wilson's hot flash, and I ain't had one. I thought you had to be beat down, bloodied, and butchered in order to claim your seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wasn't. I said, "I've never had a DUI." He said, "How many times were you stopped?" I said, "Next question." He took me to Mac Brewster out when I went to Palm Springs, California, to the Palm Springs Roundup in 1989. I had a year and a half sober. And Mac said, "Chip, if you're like me, you probably became an alcoholic when you quit bragging about how much booze you drank and started lying about how much you really did." And something in my brain just went. And then I would listen to what the old timers were saying. I drank just enough alcohol for the "I don't give a darn" light to come on. And I didn't care about nothing. I didn't care about those kids. I didn't care about that wife. I didn't care about nothing except drinking. Cliff Roach always talked about it. I didn't drink for the effect. I drank for the effect 8 minutes and 40 seconds later. I said, "Well, maybe I just drank for the taste." They said, "Yep. You ever sit down and drink an entire case of Ozark spring water?" So they would always discount everything that I was doing. I said, "Well, forget it. I'll go ahead and take my unmanageability was obvious. It was tangible evidence of Y'all remember when streaking was popular? Boy, does that date me. 1975 Key West drunk tank. Somehow I ended up with a federal rap over that one. But I'm saying I've never had a DUI, but I had a federal rap. And the reason I didn't get a DUI is I always flashed my military ID card before my driver's license. And I had a set of leave papers. I said, I got to get back. I'm a warrior. They need me back there. So they let me out of jail on a $35 fine. Alcoholics are cunning, baffling, powerful people. When he took me to step 2, he said, came to believe that a power greater than yourself can... I said, I got no problem with that. I was raised in a parochial school. Next. Boy, was I about to learn. I said, my problem is insanity, and I am not going to admit that I'm insane. He said, weren't you locked up in a nut ward? I said, that was only 10 days. It didn't count. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. I kept thinking that you wanted me to admit I was insane, and here's what Bill Wilson said, because the old-timer took me to the big book, like it's something important. On page 36, he had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet for all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in the favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if he only mixed it with milk. Whatever the precise definition may be, we call it plain insanity. And then there have 4 other mentions of the word insanity. The insane idea, the insanely excuse for taking the first drink, the insane idea won out. Oh my God. The justification for a spree was insanely insufficient. I ain't even turned the page. Next, step 3. I want to tell you real quick what happened with step 3. I did it like most of y'all. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, turned on the shower, all the faucets, because I do not want them to hear me praying. And you know how the acoustics are in the bathroom. And I'm about to get on my knees and pray. God forbid the kids hear me. And I sit there and I do the 3rd step prayer. And it says, oh, an effect sometimes a great one is felt at once. Nope. Get up and move on. 2.5 years sober. I'm dying in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know what to do. I'm going to work and I'm crying. I'm in a marriage I don't want to be in. The kids are driving me nuts. The sponsor would say, I said, the kids are driving me absolutely crazy. He said, it's terrible when they're going through puberty and so are you at the same time. I started drinking when I was 15. You know how that works. So I'm sitting there and I'm just dying as I'm going to work and I'm crying. I don't know what to do to end the marriage and stuff like that. So I say, oh, what I'm going to do? I need God's help. Take away my difficulties. I got difficulties. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get one-on-one with God. I'm going to get naked with God, not physically. Spiritually. I'm going to call on the attention of God. He had a 40-acre ranch. I went out there he had a big lake, a 6-acre pond, he called it, with a high dive on there that we all used to have AA parties. And I knew he wasn't going to be there, so I ran out there. I jumped on the high dive, took my big book, because me and God going to get one-on-one. I got the proof right here. And I opened it up, and I'm going to do the 3rd step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee. And I looked out there, and the white billowy clouds were out there. The ducks were gliding along the top of the water. To do with me and build with me as I will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties. Man, I had difficulties. I sat there and finished the prayer, and I stood still and waited for God to fix it. Nothing happened. Maybe he didn't hear me. Now I'm starting to cry, and I scream that prayer out to God. I need help right now. And I screamed that prayer. And I stood there in all that defiance. And I said, shh. And I got off that high dive, and I walked all the way up the long hill. Now watch, here comes the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tell the old-timer what you did. I went up and told Burl, I said, here's what I did, and it does not work. He said, what doesn't work? I said, 3rd step, it does not work. It says, if honestly and humbly taken, an effect sometimes a great one is felt at once, and it didn't work. He said, you are alcoholic, aren't you? I said, yeah, I am alcoholic for sure. He said, and you were that close to taking a drink? I said, you bet. He said, and you went out to my place and didn't tell me, and got on my high dive and opened up that book and demanded the attention of God? You bet. And it didn't work. He said, you did it more than once. You screamed at God, commanding him. It works in the military. He said, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He said, did you drink? I said, no, but what the hell has that got to do with it? And here's the message. Chip, what were you looking for? A Corvette? I'm like, yeah. I wanted a burning bush. I wanted those clouds to spin like poltergeist. I wanted to see the bass come up and tail walk over the top of the wall. I needed tangible evidence that God heard me. He said, you're here. You're sober. This is the way that I got Alcoholics Anonymous, time and time and time again. And this is the way that I try to pass it on to people. I started working all those steps I was doing. Now I'm sponsoring guys. And I'm going to tell you, I want to bring this up to the spiritual part. Who was it that said, Frank Milo, the lawyer from Chicago, I wish that we could just put right up there, a picture of me in detox. And that would suffice for here's what I was like. Let's just move on to the recovery. What did your picture look like when you got an arrested alcoholic, locked up, covered up, whatever you did? I'm working these steps and I'm sponsoring these guys and I'm saying, what is it we're supposed to do with all this stuff? And he said, sometimes, Chip, he said, we believe it comes down to one moment in time, in God's time, when everything that you have available at your resources is going to be to help another human being. Not you. Everything that you have done, all the scar tissue, will be to pull it together. I was 15 years sober. I was sponsoring this guy that has still sponsored him today. He texted me this morning. He texts me or calls me every single day. I've got 34 years. He's got 33 years coming up on 34. We have that packed together. I get to sponsor a couple of guys. People say, Chip, how many people you sponsor? I said, about 200, but 4 call. You know the drill. Will you be my sponsor? Yeah. At about 15 years sober, I'm standing on a roof. I'm a contractor. I'm standing on a roof doing a roof inspection, and I got one of the, this will date me, I had a Motorola phone with a brick battery on it, the manly brick, the extended battery. Super contractor. And I'm standing on top of that roof, and the phone rings, and a Big Al had moved down to Sarasota, and he had problems in his marriage, and they were getting bad. And he was talking to me honestly about it. He thought his wife might have been moving in and out on him with another human being, and she was in school, and he started becoming a stalker and checking messages. I said, no. We're going to practice these principles in all our affairs. Anyhow, I'm on top of a roof. He's in Sarasota. The phone rings. This is what it came down to. This is where I learned about Alcoholics Anonymous. 15 years sober of doing this stuff, going into ins and outs and trying to help people and screaming and yelling, going through divorces, plural now. And I'm sitting here dying inside. I'm standing on top of the roof, and I said, Al, what is the matter? I can hear it in his voice. You heard it in Aaron's voice. We all got ready. We got ready because we knew what he was going to say, and tears started coming down, and our souls started getting washed. And he says, Chip, I'm here. I said, Al, something's wrong with your voice. What are you doing? He said, I'm outside his apartment. I have weapons. Al has weapons. Al has a lot of weapons. I said, Al, are you packing? He said, yeah, I've got the judge. And I'm like, ah. And I am calling on the attention of God. And I am standing on top of that roof at 15 years sober. And I'm going, please help me say the right thing. Don't let me screw this up. What do I do? And I remembered back to what they told us when we were new. And I said, Al, would you do your sponsor one favor? We've done this for 15 years together. He said, yes, I will do you one. Get in the truck, Al. That's all I could come up with. And that's what God put in my head. Al, I need you to get in the truck. Would you please get in the truck? Al sat in the truck. 17, 18 years later, he texted me this morning. If he would have carried out what he had intended to do. See, I was waiting for this magnificent event to happen in my head. But when I was 2.5 years sober and I was screaming at the attention of God, who was I trying to help? Me. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties. But this time I'm asking for Al. And that book says that we can ask for ourselves if someone else will be helped. man, I was missing it. I was going through these events in my life, and I was trying to figure out, what is this thing about sobriety? What am I supposed to be learning here? And time again, we earn our stripes and our medals in Alcoholics Anonymous because they're all hidden. We get the joy of being able to meet new people and hang out with new people and have these spiritual experiences and stuff. Angie and I have been through so much. And Angie and I were friends for 14 years before we ever started dating. Angie knew my former spouse. Amanda, her daughter, really knew my former spouse because Amanda, her daughter, sponsored my former spouse. It's a tangled web that we weave. And Amanda used to come to my house, stay at the house, go to the beach all the time. So we had a very intimate relationship, and I knew Angie because of seeing her and Amanda speak and going to different conventions with them and just having a good time. There is no way I could connect the dots of what happened in our lives. To one moment, Amanda's putting us on stage together because I am single, sober, and serene by God. The wife that Amanda had sponsored, and I had the third divorce. And I became dark for 13 months. But I had people that took me back through the steps and rebooted me, and I started learning about what Bill Wilson wrote 13 years later. If you've never read the 12 and 12, man, it's some good stuff. I had totally missed it. That's what me and Donnie were talking about. Bill Wilson put a paragraph in there that could have summed up my entire life. If you liked me, I hurt you. If you loved me, I hurt you again and again and again until I learned how to do it different. That's why I was having all these divorces. What does he say in the 12 and 12? And I didn't learn it until I had 25 years sober when they forced me to take another inventory just on relationships because it was in preparation of Angie coming into my life about a year and a half later. What forced me to make this change? Bill Wilson put it in there in the 12 and 12. But it is from our twisted relations with family, friends, and society at large that many of us have suffered the most. The primary fact that we fail to recognize is our total inability to form a true partnership with another human being. Either we insist upon dominating them or we pull them down over top of us so we can hide underneath the covers. That's all paraphrase. But you go find it in the 12 and 12. I did not realize that I did that to people. Do you realize that I was making drunken orphans and drunken widows? That's why I was getting divorced. And then I get sober, and I'm making sober widows and sober orphans. I'm going off to AA conventions, leaving the family at home. I'm in Hawaii, going to Hawaii State conventions, leaving the family at home. I'm going across the nation, going to conventions, leaving the family at home. And the kids are all like, it was like that when he drank. That's why I kept getting divorced over and over and over again. Didn't realize it. Like Chuck says, you can't see till you can see. You can't hear till you can hear. And all of a sudden, I found out my problem. 3 minutes. Step 6 and 7. I had a sponsor that took me back through step 6 and 7. I got a sponsor today by the name of Jerry W. He now lives in Omaha, Nebraska. I changed sponsors at 28 years sober. Nothing wrong with the old sponsor. Wanted to go a different direction, took the new sponsor. He took me into a different direction to solve all my problems, to help me solve the problems. So I'm going through all this different stuff, and I'm trying to figure out all these different things, and life was just rocking on and going crazy. But I'm learning all about this spiritual aspect and stuff like that, and I start undergoing all these different things. On step 6 and 7, I had no idea. They're only a paragraph apiece in the big book, but they are an entire chapter apiece in the 12 and 12. And when I went through that third divorce, boy meets girl on AA campus, it was a Camelot wedding, home group wedding. It was bulletproof. It could never have failed. It was blessed by God. I had 10 years. She had 6 months. So my sponsor made me Dutch date or co-date with other AA and Al-Anon couples. I had rules I had to follow for 2.5 years. We dated, then we got married. It was bulletproof. Couldn't have failed. She was 18 years younger than I was. My former spouse said, well, if you want to marry somebody the same age as your children. I said, she's not. She's 2 years older. But it was absolutely bulletproof. It was all about ego and how I was looking. It was about Corvettes and Mercedes sports cars and the big garage with the big house. When they took me back and made me reboot, he said, step 6, defects of character. I said, well, that's easy. Arrest records. He said, Chip, it's tangible evidence. You can look all over your path of destruction. That is tangible evidence of your defects of character. But what about shortcomings? I said, well, that's the same thing. Bill Wilson said it in his letter. It's the same exact thing. He said, but for you, you need something different. So on shortcomings, let's do this. On step 6, let's talk about defects of character. Write this. Things that I did, I never should have done. Okay, I knew about that. Arrest records, holes in the walls, screaming and yelling. The stuff I did to my children. He said, now, step 7, shortcomings. Things that you should have done that you had not been doing. I never approached that. All I knew was about the problems. And what I did was I came up with a list of every defect of character I had, the things that I did. I now had a list of things that I should have done instead. And my entire life changed. My entire sobriety changed. And I was 26 years sober because of a traumatic event that happened to me. Sponsors have walked me through the steps the whole time. I talked to my sponsor on Tuesday night. I'm on Zoom in his house in Omaha, Nebraska. Me and 14 other guys, 500 years of sobriety. I'm still a middle child. On Wednesday night is my time from 6 o'clock to 6:30 to tell him anything that's been going on with me, or any time other than that during the week. I can feel free to call him. And I do. There's a lot of times I act without sponsor guidance, and I pay the price. I can do anything I want in Alcoholics Anonymous if I'm willing to pay the price. But I can get any type of joy that I want, and I could accept the price of receiving joy. Because I'm not the monster that I used to be. I'm not the animal that they locked up in a nut ward in solitude in a rubber room in a fetal position. I'm not the guy that if you like me, I hurt you, and if you love me, I hurt you over and over and over again. My mother loves me. My mother loves Alcoholics Anonymous. My father loved Alcoholics Anonymous. He used to go with me to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, Dad, have a breath mint. He was shooting scotch before we went to the meetings. And I said, Dad, don't share. But they all loved Alcoholics Anonymous because of what you all have done to their son and the changes that you have made. It's by meeting people like you and establishing family relationships with people like Donnie and Diane and all the rest of you, and getting to listen to people like Aaron and Adam and Megan. We saw Megan in the elevator. She said, I'm not going to be able to be there for your talk. I said, well, you know what the topic is. Who's not here? That threw her for a loop. Thank you so much for the joy of bringing me and Angie to meet you all here and your little pocket of enthusiasm of Kansas City. Thank you for bringing us to your 40th annual Sunflower Roundup. Thank you for all the love that you have given us, because we're going to take this love all the way back to Destin, and we're going to share it with our home group and tell them AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen are alive and well in Kansas City. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, remember after me.